All right, welcome everyone. Today, we're going to break down the MLAM Capstone project. And look, I want you to think of this not as just some final assignment you have to get through. No, this is your bridge. It's the thing that takes you from classroom theory to having a real-world professional impact. So let's map out exactly what that journey looks like. Okay, so here's the game plan for today. First up, we'll talk about the capstone advantage. What's in it for you? Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty with your 5-stage roadmap. After that, we'll cover how you're bringing the project to life, what to expect for the final defense, and we'll wrap it all up with your overall assessment. Let's get started. All right, first up, the capstone advantage. We're talking about bridging that gap to professional credibility. And really, let's get one thing straight from the get-go. This is so much more than just ticking a box on a course requirement. It's about building a real, tangible bridge from what you're learning here to the kind of credibility that gets you noticed in your career. So what's the official word on this? Well, it's a culminating academic exercise to integrate classroom learning with practical managerial application. But let's translate that, right? What does practical managerial application actually mean? It means this whole project is less about how fancy your code is and way more about honing those core skills every manager needs. We're talking about, can you look at a messy situation and frame a clear business problem? Can you apply a solid reasoning to it? And, crucially, can you stand up and defend the decisions you made? That's the real goal here. Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but what does this journey actually look like? How do you really get from just a spark of an idea all the way to a finished, impactful project? Well, the good news is it's not some giant, scary leap. It's actually a series of really manageable steps. And that brings us right here to your 5-stage roadmap. Think of this as your guided path to success. The whole capstone is intentionally designed this way. It breaks a huge project down into a step-by-step process. So instead of being overwhelming, it's all about learning, getting feedback, and refining your work as you go. So here they are, the 5 key stages of your journey. You can see the logic, right? You start really broad with problem orientation, just figuring out the landscape. Then you nail down your topic finalization. From there, it's data identification. What are you going to use? Then you defend your approach in the methodology defense. And finally, you have a pre-final defense as a sort of dress rehearsal. The beauty of this structure is that it gives you constant feedback. It's designed to kill that last-minute panic, and maybe more importantly, it helps you build those real-world skills like project management and, just talking to stakeholders and keeping them in the loop. And check this out. This shows exactly how you're graded along the way. The first 20 marks of your capstone are tied directly to these stages. So you literally get points for doing the work at each step. 2 marks for just getting the problem oriented, 6 big ones for finalizing your topic, a few for identifying data, and so on. Each one of these is a little win, a rewarded milestone. It's designed to make sure you're on the right track, way, way before any final deadline ever looms. Okay, section 3, bringing the project to life. For me, this is where it gets really interesting. This is where all the theory gets tossed out the window and you start dealing with real problems to create real impact. And the absolute #1 rule here, the big one, is something called industry anchoring. What this means is your project has to be based on a real problem that you've identified by actually talking to an industry professional. I want to be super clear. This is not optional. It's a hard requirement. And there's a great reason for it. It guarantees that your work is relevant, it's authentic, and it gives you an amazing story to tell in job interviews. Seriously, think of this as your first real managerial task. You're networking, you're uncovering business challenges, and you're scoping out a project. These are the skills that leaders use every single day. So how does this industry anchoring thing actually play out? Let's make it concrete and walk through a quick example, starting with one from HR. It really does start this simple. This is stage 1, problem orientation in action. You might send a professional note that says something just like this. You're just opening the door, starting a conversation around a big topic like, in this case, employee attrition. Notice you're not claiming you have the solution. You're just asking to learn about the challenges from someone who's in the trenches with it every day. And then, after that conversation, you get to stage 2, topic finalization. And bam, look at the difference. That big, vague topic of attrition gets sharpened into a super specific, super valuable business question. This is a critical skill. Taking a fuzzy problem and turning it into something clear and solvable, that's what managers do. A focused question like this is what makes a project and a candidate really stand out. Now, we just used an HR example, but I really want to stress this point. This exact same process works everywhere. It doesn't matter if your passion is marketing, finance, operations, strategy. You could even do an interdisciplinary project that touches on a few of these. The fundamental principle is always the same. Find a real-world problem, talk to someone about it, and then frame a sharp, focused question. Just to drive the point home, let's switch gears and look at another example. How about marketing? And there you have it. Same exact structure, right? You take a huge real-world challenge, like how do we spend our marketing dollars smarter? And you distill it into a specific, actionable question just like this. And let me tell you, this is the kind of problem statement that makes hiring managers sit up and pay attention because it speaks directly to creating business value. So, you've made it through all 5 stages. Now it's time for the big finale. The final defense. And please, try to think of this less like a scary final exam and more like your moment to shine. It's your chance to showcase your whole journey, from that first conversation to the final insights you uncovered. And yeah, it's a pretty significant moment. It carries a weight of 40 marks. This really is the culmination of everything we've talked about, where you pull all those pieces together and show what you've learned. But here's a really interesting twist in how that evaluation works. Of those 40 marks, 30 of them come from the faculty. But look at that, a full 10 marks come from a peer review. This is huge. It's designed to make sure everyone is pulling their weight and that individual accountability is just as important as the final product. Okay, let's drill down even further into that faculty portion. Out of their 30 marks, notice this. The presentation and defense are worth 18 marks, while the written report is worth 12. That's not an accident. It tells you that how you communicate your ideas, how you defend your reasoning, that's actually valued more than the paper itself. Because that right there is a core managerial skill. And speaking of that report, you actually get a choice, which is awesome. You can orient your final paper in one of 2 ways. You can make it a really practical, professional document, something a manager could actually use to make decisions. Or you can go the more academic route and structure it like a research paper. The choice is yours, and it lets you tailor the output to whatever best fits your own career goal. All right, let's wrap this up by zooming out to the complete picture, your overall assessment. We've talked about the 20 marks for the stages and the 40 for the final. So where does that 60-mark total fit into the whole course? And here it is, the bottom line. The capstone project, when you add up the continuous assessment and the final defense, is worth a massive 60 out of 100 points for the entire course. Let me just say that again. 60%. So yeah, it's safe to say this is without a doubt the most important thing you'll work on. So to wrap it all up, what are the big takeaways? First, this is a practical journey, not just some academic project. Second, it's broken down into structured stages so you can learn as you go. Third, and this is key, it's anchored in real industry problems. Fourth, it's testing your reasoning and your thinking, not just your tech skills. And finally, and maybe most importantly, this whole thing is your chance to build a fantastic professional story you can tell for years to come. And that really leaves us with just one final question to think about. This capstone isn't just an assignment. It's a powerful asset. It's something you can put in your portfolio, something you can talk about in every single career interview you have. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. How are you going to use this journey to build your professional story?